Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator. I'm all about capturing and curating career and life stories as a meaningful way to celebrate a milestone moment like a big O birthday, anniversary, retirement, or graduation. And I'm at my best when curating photo books that move your memories from the basement or your phone or your computer to the coffee table, giving you and your family and friends access to these treasured memories for years to come. I also love curating and capturing life and career stories through this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? It's a series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who have been there, done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they're not alone, that everybody starts somewhere and everybody goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. I'm very excited to be interviewing today Ilya Lyubimskiy, who is the managing attorney at Premier Legacy Law. Welcome, Ilya.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
And boy, that's was a difficult name, so I hope I got that right. You did a little coaching on the phonetical way to pronounce your name, so.
Yes, yes. You wouldn't be the first person to struggle with this name, and you wouldn't be the last. So don't worry about it.
Well, and the part about your name too does give a little bit of insight about your background, which we're going to get into. We're going to pause for a moment to hear from a very happy Life Story Curator client.
I'm a client of Life Story Curator, and I reached out to Kathy to do my husband's 50th birthday book. And I chose to use Kathy because I've seen her work, and of course I've known her for a long time, and I knew that the product would be way above standard. I've done books myself, and I knew that she would do an exemplary job. The process working with Kathy is very organized, and we started off with interviewing me, coming up with a deeper analysis of who my husband is. And through that process, we came up with things I would never thought of on my own with just her asking certain questions. It triggered memories and special things that really added a great deal of value when we went to put the book together. And I hadn't remembered all these things when I first talked to her about it. So having that interview was great. When my husband opened the book on his birthday, he was nervous, of course, at first, and then very excited and quite emotional. That he's from New Zealand, and so having family represented from so far away in this book was really, really special. And I know that family and friends from afar were pleased to be able to be part of this process. And I couldn't have done half the job that Kathy did, particularly in the time frame. And it was just beautifully presented. And she captured him very well. And she helped me sort of narrow down the focus and the amount of photos. And it couldn't have been any better.
Listeners, as you know, we always like to start with our icebreaker questions. So Ilya, if you would, tell us where you grew up in the world, and where you are in the birth order in your family, and how you think those two things shaped you as an adult.
Absolutely. So the answer to your first question is Russia. So I hail from Russia, grew up, I was 8 years old when we immigrated to the United States. So I'm an immigrant, and I am the first of two children born. My sister and I are quite a bit apart. There, we got 12 years difference. So
Oh,
by
wow.
the time I was getting ready to enter my teenage years, we were already here in the States. Is when my sister was born, and then I go, well, what gives? How come I didn't have, I didn't have somebody my age growing up with me and have a sibling to play with? Because then at that point, became me more of a big brother slash babysitter role
Oh,
by the
yeah.
time she was growing up. So that's a little bit about me. I was born in Moscow and went to third grade in Moscow. I think I stopped halfway, and that's when we moved to the U.S. So I finished out third grade here, right in Colorado.
Yeah. Well, and I think you were telling me you didn't speak any English when you moved here as well. So you had that challenge. So you move in the middle of a school year and you don't
Right.
speak the language and you're very much the new kid, right?
Yeah, that was a huge challenge. Not only the culture shock of coming from Russia to a completely different country, so many things that were new and foreign to me here. I also did not know the language, so I struggled for that first year in school because it was something where I had to learn on the fly. And math was something that I was proud of. I was excelled in math because back in Russia, our math levels were a little bit higher than they are here in the U.S. So I was comparatively advanced in math. So people thought that I was kind of kid that was shy, but really was a math whiz in
Ah,
third grade. Because I think at the time we started, it was fractions is what they were doing in math class when in third grade when we moved to the U.S. Where as we did that already I think a year back in Russia.
wow. Well, it's funny that you remember that. I couldn't remember what grade I learned those things in, but it was probably very impactful for you because you were coming in new and you were probably like, well, what? We've already done this. Why is this? Why are we going through this again?
Yeah, it was something I was proud of because I
Mhm.
did not have a good grasp of the language, but I knew that math was a kind of universal language which I could excel in, so I didn't feel completely lost.
Yeah.
Whereas that first year, I was enrolled in summer camp, and over 2.5 months, I was able to pick up a lot of conversational English, and then things got a lot easier for me going forward, where I had a good grasp of the language at that point.
Yeah. But that your math probably gave you some confidence, because again, you feel like I got this part mastered, even though I don't have the language mastered. And I'm guessing your sister had a way easier route because she had you, someone speaking English, as an older brother, and your parents probably had more English by the time.
Right.
So the
Hmm.
whole scenario was a little bit different for her. Wow.
Yeah, my sister was first generation American, born here, so I think she's had an easier path. I'm sure she would disagree with me every chance she gets, but yeah, I think her path was a little bit more straightforward because she was born here.
She was born here. Okay. Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? Or now we've learned about the ambivert, which is kind of that one in the middle.
That's a great question. So know about until I started listening to your podcast. This ambivert, I've not heard of this term before, but I think that's closest to really describe me. In school, I was pretty shy, kind of kept to myself, and maybe it was a part of being an immigrant and trying to kind of fit in and stay under the radar. But I have I would say I have qualities of both. I'm an introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert. I guess ambivert is the way to describe that. I'm able to really blend in a lot of different circles. I have my nerdy friends and my interests, but otherwise I meet people for a living, right? And I really love to get to know them and their circumstances, what's important to them. This is kind of what I do for a living. So, and I really enjoy that part of the job.
Yeah.
Although I could definitely relate to folks that will say, "Hey, really want to get out of the house. I'm more of a homebody." So I kind of see both circles.
Yeah. Yeah. And recharge the batteries. Sometimes you want to be at home in that space when you've been around people all day, right? You're like, you know what? I just want to be by myself for a bit
Yeah,
or be in that
and
comfort zone. Yeah.
likewise, it's the other way around. If I don't have a lot of meetings that day, I'm craving that social interaction. So, although maybe I'm not the biggest social butterfly, I really enjoy being around people.
Okay. Well, that does lead to our next icebreaker question then. On the fun meter, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a couch potato and 5 being the life of the party, well, where do you put yourself?
Um, maybe I don't know, 3 or 4. I guess it's a better question for my friends to answer. But I like to, I like to stay at home at some days, but other days I like to live it up and go out with friends and go play football or basketball or just be outside. So I like to stay active, and anytime. Although a lot of my friends have newborn children and toddlers, so they've been busy recently with stuff. So when we do get out, I tend to keep things pretty lively.
Okay. Okay. So what would we put you at, a 4 then? Maybe
Yeah,
on the scale
3.5 or 4. Let's
3.5.
shoot right down the middle.
Okay. And then on the risk meter, same scale, 1 to 5, 1 being a low risk taker and 5 being a high risk taker. Where are you when it comes to risks?
I would say I'm a 4 or a 5 there. As an entrepreneur, business owner, it's hard to really say I'm risk averse because if there's nothing but risk in,
Yeah.
jumping into your own business. So I would say that generally describes me. Hey, shoot for the fences. Let's try to get this done. I mean, we're taking some calculated risks, but if I wasn't a risk taker, I probably would not be on your podcast and may not even have met you.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Because we met through that networking group and you were, because you were there talking about your business, et cetera.
Yep.
So yeah, you hadn't started your business. Well, I'm hopeful that I wouldn't have known you because I know part of your career path was a prosecutor. So I wouldn't want to be
Right.
you because I needed you or I was across the table from you or what have you. So
Yeah, back in those days, when I had a final interaction with somebody, a victim or somebody who was a witness to a crime, they said, "Hey, it was really nice to know you. I hope I don't meet you again." So I completely understand that sentiment.
yeah. Okay, well, Ilya, let's why don't you talk a little bit about what it means to be a managing partner or managing attorney at your law firm, and then we'll get into the how did I get here?
Yeah. So managing attorney really means that I'm looking at the operations of the law firm, but I'm also doing a lot of the background marketing, the uh, taking care of all the businesses, making sure our social media presence is up to date, making sure that we have a functioning website. So, pretty much you name it with a small business, you wear a lot of hats when you're running a small business. So that although I would love to focus more on the client facing, being in as many new client meetings as I can, it's a lot of the background work, right? Facebook, your Instagram, you're making sure that our website presence is still good. The Google business profile, which is I've learned recently is a big deal for Google search results. I'm really diving into the SEO just to promote the business more. So it's a lot of these background things and making sure that we have the processes in place to put a good product out there. It's
Yeah.
not just, the meeting the clients, it's all the background stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs we go into whatever specialty we're going into wanting to do that work, but there's so much more that you end up doing in terms of business development and marketing and selling and then accounting and I mean all the other pieces and parts. It really
Mhm.
can be overwhelming, like you said, so many hats. So what area of law do you specialize in?
I specialize in estate planning, probate, and trust administration at this firm. So if somebody needs wills, trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, all that stuff, I specialize in doing for people. So it really helps, at least my process is really getting to know somebody and getting to know what makes them tick, what's important to them before I can craft a plan that works for them. A lot of people which I think I would push back on. A lot of people consider my line of work to be what they call transactional, right? Hey, you're going to sit down and get these documents from the attorney and then you're done. That's not how I run my business. I want my clients and the folks that I reach out and talk to really benefit from my services and have the knowledge that they have an advocate on their side that can help them through whatever they need, right? Even if I don't practice an area of law that they need help in, they use me as a resource to point them to another attorney, another good referral, just give them good advice about stuff. Because I think that people nowadays, they have access to online help where they can maybe draft a will through a website, and they may equate that to, well, why do I need to spend money on an attorney, right? If I could do this. I bring in the service aspect and the trusted advisor piece where they're educated about what they're getting, rather than, hey, transaction is done. I printed out some documents, they signed on the dotted line, and that's it. So I kind of pride myself on the service piece and helping people through it, and especially if they've lost a loved one too. A lot of times I meet clients that have recently lost a loved one and they need help through the probate process, or they need help dealing with a trust. And so I'm there for them, and I need to walk them through the process. I will do that, and I will do it in a way that they're going to make sure that they're, one, taking care of what they need to take care of, and that they are heard and they feel supported throughout the process. Because I don't want to pour salt on the wound. When you've lost somebody, the last thing you want to do is, deal with an attorney who is not responsive to you, is not helping you through the process. So that's what I do.
Well, I definitely got that sense when my husband and I were talking to you about our wills and such, that what I got out of the meeting was a great peace of mind that our questions were answered. And if we'd have tried to do something online, that, like you said, I maybe could have found information out there, but I still would have had more questions and felt like, well, did I miss something? Are we really covered? And what does this look like? So I do appreciate the expertise, the advice, the trusted advisor, and then in the end, that peace of mind is priceless. So
Well,
okay,
I'm
well,
glad you
yeah,
got that out of the meeting, Kathy. That's great. It makes me feel good.
okay. Okay, so Ilya, let's take it back to junior high now. Let's get into how did I get here? When you were a
Mhm.
young man, I guess probably about 12 then, heading into junior high. What did you want to be when you grew up?
At the time, I did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And into the beginning of high school, I did not know. I grew up in Southeast Aurora, the Smoky Hill area, went to Smoky Hill High School, and I was always pushed by my parents to excel. They put me in the higher level classes, your AP, your IB classes, and IB was a program that was available in Smoky Hill at the time, that made us take harder classes, right, than what's needed to graduate. And then I always thought, well, this is a drag. Why am I being pushed through all this? And when I could have an easier time in high school. But I understood that there was this immigrant mindset at the time, as you got to work really hard, because nothing's going to be given to you. And we're here in this country to try to maximize the opportunities that this country allows us to have, which is a lot of things we did not have back in Russia. So that kept hearing that in the back of my mind, because it was said to me over and over again. So in high school, I had this feeling that I needed to know what I wanted to do, but I had no idea. And then we took a plan test in school, and the plan test is designed to kind of measure somebody's aptitude and decide and help people decide what field they might be good or excel at. And I took this test, and it was really right down the middle. I remember a circle chart of hey, you either have analytical skills, or maybe you're very creative, or maybe you have a very business mindset. Mine was almost directly in the center. And I said, well, thanks for nothing, guys. I'm still
This is going to help me, right?
right. I'm still no closer to figuring out what I wanted to do. So I was thinking about, you know what, do I want to be an engineer? Do I want to leverage kind of the math acumen that I had, that analytical ability, or do I want to do something else? But then Law and Order became a big part of my life, where I would just watch episode after episode of Law and Order, and so I think I was a victim to the Law and Order effect, and I said, hey, I want to do that. I want to go and actually represent victims and fight for justice in court. So I got that bug in me in high school, and I pursued it later.
Ah, and so your book, because Law and Order kind of covers both the police side as well as the attorney side. So, but it was definitely the attorney or the law side that you were attracted to, the
Yeah, it
courtroom.
was the law side that was more appealing to me. I mean, although it would be very cool to carry a service weapon, and they do fantastic work, don't get me wrong. I just thought that it's a little dangerous. So I said, you know what? I don't want to be shot at. I don't want to have to deal with a lot of the stuff they deal with, but I want to help. So I saw myself in a better equipped to be in front of a jury, in a judge, in a courtroom setting.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
this is high school then. So then you set off to say, okay, now when I finish high school, then then how did you decide college, undergrad, and then law school? I'm
Yeah, so
assuming.
so for undergrad, it's interesting to get into law school, and this is what I found out in undergrad when I was trying to decide on a major, is law school does not require any specific type of undergrad degree. They just require that you have one. And then I was reading up and talking to people, and I heard a lot of people did let's do an English degree, let's do a political science, which is considered, I guess, more of a standard approach to pre-law school studies. And I said, you know what? I'm not really interested in either of those, and I don't know that's going to be, the best for me. So I said, let's do something in business. Let's do something where I can leverage I liked math. I knew that I was really good at it, and I wanted to leverage my analytical skills in that degree. So I decided, let's do accounting. The job prospects were good for accounting. I always had that thought of, well, what if I don't make it and I'm not good enough as an attorney? I would like to have a fallback. So that's what I decided accounting was my route, and I took it from there.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So you might have been one of the few business majors, right, that was then going on to law school.
Right, you're absolutely right. That was not the standard path. A lot of people around me were humanities or political science majors, and then they said, well, yeah, law school makes sense because I've done a lot of reading. I'm into that, and so it was interesting that I was never big on English, any of the humanities, but I decided, hey. Law school is what I wanted to do because I had my sights on being a prosecutor, the Law and Order effect.
Yeah. Well, on a very different parts of your brain, it seems like doing the accounting side versus the law side. So,
Mhm.
okay. So where did you go to undergrad and then on to law school?
So undergrad, I went to Metro. I got my degree at a Metro in the Aurora campus. I actually initially started because I was told, hey, you should be in a university, right? My parents said it's important for me to have a degree from a university. So I actually started in a quarter at DU when we realized, even with financial support, with scholarships, there's only so much our money can take us. in DU. So after a quarter of DU education, I decided, hey, I got to get a degree where I'm not going to be have a ton in student debt before I get into law school, which is just going to add more onto the
Yeah,
student.
yeah.
So I made I guess the financial decision to transfer over to Metro, and I really loved my time at Metro, and I got a good education over there, and I knew hey, got to get that diploma so I could apply for law school, and that's what I did.
Ah, okay. And yeah, now at the time, Metro at the time probably they were a college, right? So they were a 4-year
Absolutely. Yes, they
accredited
were
college,
a
but they didn't
four-year
have credit.
college at the time, and then I think 2 years, maybe 3 years after I graduated, they made the conversion to university, and they started offering graduate programs.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you get your accounting degree then. Do you go ahead and get a job, like a full-time accounting job, or do you go right into law school or do
I
both at the
did.
same time?
So I got an accounting job at first, started as an internship because I said, I'm done working food service. I need to start getting out into the real world, right? I need to get some experience. I got an internship, was able to work as an auditor for a federal agency for a little while. And but at that point, I already knew I had my sights set on law school. Ended up having to take the LSAT in the midst of studying for CPA exams because I was approached by my employer at the time. They said, "Hey, we need you to be a CPA, so we're going to go ahead and pay you your way through this program, the courses to study and the actual tests, because we need you to become a CPA." I said, "Okay, twist my arm, I'll do it." Right.
Wow.
But at the time, I was also had my sights set on law school, as I mentioned, so I needed to fit in my LSAT studies to get a good enough entrance exam score to be able to apply, and that's what happened.
Wow. And so did you go ahead and finish the CPA and get your CPA?
I did. I did.
Wow.
So just to add more letters behind my long name, as if that's required. But yes, I did finish my CPA, and then after some struggles in applying for law school, I got in. First, I thought I did not get in because DU was one of my two choices. If I was staying in town, which was pretty much a sure thing, it was either between DU or CU in Boulder. But Boulder did not offer a part-time program for folks that are working full-time. And I said, there is no way I can't work through, my law school career. I'm going to need to continue earning a full-time paycheck. And continue to help pay my bills. And I was actually just recently we bought a house, my wife and I. So I needed to make sure we're still making the mortgage payments when I got into law school. So that made the decision easier for me.
Yeah. Now, was there any sleep involved at this time? It sounds like you're working full time, going to school part time.
Not a lot, not a lot, but I made it work. So I'm proud of myself for doing it because the part-time or the evening class program was not easy, right? I would start class sometimes at 6 o'clock and would get out at 10. And that was tough. And the days that I'm not in class, I needed to do a lot of reading and catch up on homework. But I set the goal and set my mind to it, so I needed to get it done because that was a dream of mine to become an attorney.
Yeah. I know a little bit about the working full time and going to school part time. I did the same thing. I was working at First Data as a supervisor or manager in an operations and customer service area, and then I was going to school part time and at DU, but it was the women's college at DU. It wasn't law school. But I think it felt to me like it was a fairly easy transition for both because I was in business and corporate, and then I was getting a business degree. So, you know, the
Mhm.
classes all applied very, you know, I could see how they applied to my work, and my work applied to my school and all that. But it was hard. I mean, I remember going to school Friday night at 6 o'clock, 6 to 10, and it's like, whoa, how am I spending my weekend? And then Saturday I was back there from 8 to 12, and then Saturday, then, you know, quick lunch 12 to 1, and then 1 to 5. And then there were some Sundays in there as well. So certain weekends, you know, were totally booked with class, and then of course you had all the homework. But yeah,
Absolutely.
you do it and you get, yay, we
Yeah, you get it done. I mean,
uh-huh.
thank God for my wife to keep me sane through it, because it was a rough 4 years. Normally, law school takes three. It's four because I took less courses at any given time. So I needed to stretch out that last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, and so you're also, your career's advancing probably as you, I'm assuming you moved from intern to something else once you got the
Mhm.
CPA and once you got some experience, right? So
Yeah.
level of responsibility goes up, probably the number of hours, etc. So you don't have that flexibility. It's not like you're working just 8 to 5. You probably had to really manage the workload there as well as your schoolwork.
Yeah, it was, it had a lot of things up in the air, but we got it done. About midway through law school, I said, "Hey, I'm really thankful I had this job. It was a great job, but I needed to start branching out, start getting legal experience, where all my experience at the time was all in auditing, right? It was all accounting experience. So then I started getting internships and fellowships and doing everything I could do to have that wealth of experience getting out of law school that I thought was really necessary for me to get a job.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know, the day you get your degree doesn't mean next day you're going to get a job offer. And so
Yeah, and it's cyclical with the attorneys, specifically, prosecutors, because at the time I really my dream was set on being a prosecutor. It depends on, what the conditions are, how many other jobs there are. And so I know that some people graduating law school would have to take a job at a rural prosecutor's office somewhere in Colorado just to be able to have a job right out of Colorado. So it wasn't always a sure thing that, hey, you're going to get a job somewhere in the metro area. And so, I had that looming over my head going, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to uproot ourselves? What did I get ourselves into? If I can't find a job right out of law school. So there was a lot of nail biting there.
yeah,
Uh, as
yeah,
I was approaching graduation.
yeah. But you still had your accounting to fall back on, but that just wasn't part of the dream. It's like, how do I
Right.
start really living the
Mhm.
dream? So okay, so you graduate. Take us through then. How did you get that first job and leaving the accounting world?
Yeah. So after I graduated, I applied everywhere in the metro area for a job as a prosecutor, and a lot of times they're looking at experience. Does this person have an internship? Do they have do they work for a judge? And so what I did during law school at any spare time that I could get is I tried to volunteer and do internships and get as much experience as I could just to get into a job where I'm competitive with somebody else who is also applying for a metro area position. I really was dreading the possibility of, well, what if I don't get a job here? Am I going to have to go move to, Montrose County, or, somewhere where I have no idea of, how to live or what's going on over there? So I applied everywhere. It was funny. One of the job interviews that I got was at Adams County, right? And at the time, we've always lived in the South Denver area. We lived in Highlands Ranch, actually, when I was getting through the end of law school, and I always thought Adams County was too far, right? I just kind of set a ceiling for myself of there's no way I'm gonna be working there. even though ironically, one of my mentors during my law school career, she was a judge, and she actually introduced me to some attorneys over there in that office. It was nice for me to network and get to meet some people, but I always thought to myself, well, this is nice that I got to meet some people and kind of see the inner workings. There's no way I'm going to end up as a district attorney in that jurisdiction. And guess what? I got hired by Adams County. So it just shows you, kind of life is planning and getting completely something else.
Yep, yep. I am taking part of this development class right now, personal development, and one of the phrases that came out early in the year was planning is for preparation, not for prediction. You know how we set these plans, oh, I want to work 5 more years and then I'm going to retire and then I'm going to do this, and then something happens and oh, you're not working for another 5 years at that same company or like you thought
Right.
you were. So
Mhm.
that phrase has really resonated me. So it's for preparation, not prediction.
That's right.
So you get the job at Adams County then. Did you and your wife then move closer? Or I mean, I'm assuming she's working too at this time, right? So
Yeah.
she's got, the
She's working full
drive and
time the whole time, and we decided I'm gonna commute to Adams County. So that's what I did for 6 years, is commuted from the Douglas County Highlands Ranch up to Brighton, Colorado, where the office was. For the courthouse and our office were actually right next to each other in Brighton.
but you got to be that prosecutor, right? And you get
I
in that courtroom
did
and
my dream job. Yep. Got into the courtroom where, I mean, there was like drinking from a fire hose getting in there, because it is a very stressful one, and two, very, very busy line of work. And unfortunately, the cases are very, very plenty in terms of how many cases there are, misdemeanor traffic, and then eventually when I got promoted into the felony, more serious cases, there are a ton of cases and not a lot of people that the office hired to handle them. It's just the reality of some of these government type positions where they can only have so many full-time employees before there's no other funds, right? So
yeah,
our caseloads were extreme.
wow. So are you working a lot of hours as well?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
just to be
probably
prepared for the next day and the
Mhm.
next week and all the next cases and yeah.
Yeah, probably between 50 to 60 hours a week is what a regular week would be, and preparing for trial, preparing for cases, just getting through our very, very large dockets, because most of our day is not spent in the office. Most of our day is spent actually in the courthouse, either, running uh, a full day of docket of cases or being in trial.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, and so during this time then, are you feeling like, "Oh, I'm living the dream. Here I am. I'm in the courtroom," and but it just starts to weigh on you at some point? Or what was kind of your emotional mindset at that point?
So it was a roller coaster for a long time, and I loved most of my time over there, and I made really, really good friends and great colleagues I still keep in touch with nowadays. It was draining, and I said, "Hey, this is it's a constant heavy flow of cases," and I started to feel like it was affecting my emotional and mental state of mind a lot more than I thought it would, where it just drains you, and you're dealing with people in the worst times of their lives, right? They were victimized, and you're getting a lot of that vicarious trauma. And so a lot of that over time, I started noticing I'm not the person that I want to be, just doing this day in and day out. So I knew it was time for a change.
Okay. So you're feeling you need to change, but what do you want to go to next then?
Yeah, and that was the other question. I started thinking, well, all I ever wanted to do was practice this, right? Being in
Yeah.
the courtroom. All I ever wanted to do was be a prosecutor, and I really wanted to have that sense of public service, right, where I'm really helping the community and making it a safer place. Where am I going to do that if not at this office? So, some prosecutors will get some experience first in a prosecutor's office, and then they'll transition on to be a defense attorney. But that was not in my skill set. I said, you know what, I just don't see myself ever doing that. So I started thinking about, well, what else can I do? And then I started to think back on a lot of the cases that I've done in that involve financial crimes. And I started thinking, hey, there is a lot of people out there who do not have an estate plan. There are a lot of people that have never updated their documents. There are a lot of people who never expected to be down on their luck. And now people that maybe are seeing them as more vulnerable are taking advantage of them. Because those are a lot of the victims that I saw in my practice. So I said, I could do a lot of good being in the civil realm in helping these people, right? Educating people, because I really like to be out in front of people. I would educate police officers and cadets even in my time as a deputy DA. So I said, you know what, I could translate that passion and bring a lot of good education and wealth of knowledge and awareness about estate planning to people where people don't want to think about it, right? It's doom and gloom. It's not a sexy topic to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about getting ill or passing. But if you don't talk about it, it doesn't make the problem go away. In fact, people that were unfortunately incapacitated a lot of times were victims in crimes because they were more vulnerable and they
Yeah.
didn't expect to be in that position, but then somebody took advantage of that. And I said, you know what? By the time it hits the prosecutor's desk, I think it's too late. The damage has been done. So why don't I keep people out of that part of the justice system and help them create a plan that's going to protect them now and then their families in the future?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the big about face that I did, because a lot of people ask me the same question, Kathy, is, well, how the hell do you go from being a prosecutor and doing criminal work 100% of the time to now never being in trial and being a civil attorney, and that was it.
Yeah. So when you're going through this decision making, um, did you do some research? Did you talk with some people? Was there a mentor or someone maybe that helped you kind of say, hey, maybe you should think about this part of the law or that part? Because that's what happened when which a lot of times when you're scratchy or, stuck in a situation, you don't even know about what's next or what it could be. You kind of are
Hmm.
just maybe sad or depressed that this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or it's taking a toll. You're recognizing something's not right, but
Right.
knowing that next thing. So did someone help you or a
I
mentor maybe?
definitely thought I was stuck. So I was asking people I know, my coworkers, hey, do you know anybody in this field? And I got connected with a few people that I could just talk to and discuss, well, what is a day in the life of this attorney look like? And I got a better sense of what life is there. I didn't have any job prospects at the time, so I was still going, what am I going to do? It is a more niche, I would say, legal practice. So I was looking around, going on all the job websites, your Indeeds, your Monster.com, just to try to find leads of, hey, where am I gonna get the knowledge I need just to actually get up to par here? Because most of the classes I took in law school were geared towards being a prosecutor, right? Being in the courtroom. And so now I needed to reteach myself skills. So thankfully I was able to, just by happenstance, I came across a law firm that needed an attorney at the time, entry level. And so I kind of hit restart on my legal career, which was stressful, for
Wow.
sure.
Stressful in a different way, right? The prosecution stress was one thing, and and then the other, starting something new again that you don't know as much about is another level of stress, right? But then also, I'm guessing you might be thinking, am I going to like this? You went from what, running 150 miles an hour to something new that you're probably not as busy or as stressed in terms of demand on your time. Probably right away, but it probably
Right.
builds up your time. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was busy in its own sense, and I was able to, I needed to. Goes back to, I guess, my risk taking approaches. I said, you know what, if I'm gonna do it, I should do it now. Because if I stay at the DA's office longer, that transition is gonna be harder and harder and harder as I stay there longer, because I'm only gonna reinforce that skill set, right? I'm never going to learn anything new, and the longer you wait, the harder that transition is. And that's that advice I was given by somebody I was talking to, and I said, you know what, it's time to rip off the Band-Aid, and we're going to put our best foot forward and try to learn this as much as I can, right?
Yeah, so you didn't go from prosecutor to your own firm. You went prosecutor, lawyer at another firm, get a lot
Yes,
of experience, and then from there,
correct.
then you decided to start your own firm,
Right.
which I'm assuming is another level of risk and decision making that you went through, right? You maybe gotten stuck again.
Right. I needed to learn the ropes. I needed to get with somebody that can actually help me get through the process, teach me about, the more of the inner workings of the practice, because, in law school, I took my trust in estates class, and enjoyed it a lot. So I said, okay, well, that's a good foundation, but
Yeah, that's
I don't
not.
know the first thing about practicing this law, right? A lot of law school classes, they'll teach you about the concepts, and the laws involving this field, but there's not a class of practicum of, okay, now help this client through their issue. That is less and less common. So I felt like I really needed that to build up on that foundation. I need to work with another law firm just to figure out what's what.
Yeah, yeah, and really get some years of experience under your belt. Well, tell us a little bit about how you transitioned to your own firm. I remember when you came to our networking group, you made the comment that growing up in Russia, there was this mentality about just keep your head down and you don't want to stand out, and this is as good as it's going to get. So what were some of
Mhm.
the things going on for you in that way? Was that when this started to happen, or was that moving from prosecution into this firm, or was it from this firm to your own practice that you really started to notice that mentality about yourself?
So I think I started to notice that mentality even like in law school, because I was always told growing up, hey, keep your head down. Like you mentioned, Kathy, keep your head down, be happy to have a job. We did not have high expectations for normal people. I came from middle to lower class family. I would never ever dream of being an attorney in Russia. In fact, only the elites and the really wealthy people would even have the money to get an education to become an attorney. So it was never even in the cards for me. And while we moved over here, that kind of transferred over, because that's all we knew is, hey, work hard, keep your head down. I know you have opportunity here, and we're going to try to make the best of it. But, I think, just kind of anecdotally speaking, my parents were like, you got to be an attorney or a doctor. Those are your two like ultimate goals, and you have to be there. But I don't think they seriously considered, can I really be one of these things? They wanted me to shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars. But I remember thinking, hey, I can't believe I'm in law school when I was the first in my extended family to even graduate college. So I just said, you know what? At what point is that gonna be enough for me? Because I don't want to push my luck any further, so thinking there's a ceiling for me and I don't want to, fly too close to the sun. But in law school, I started getting, when I started meeting more people, being exposed to more attorneys, I go, well, how come they could do it, right? What's setting me apart from them? And I realized I'm imposing a lot of these ceilings on myself where I don't have to. So I kept trying to work hard and uh, reach higher and higher heights. And then I said, you know what? I can be an attorney. I can succeed in this. I can succeed in the courtroom. And even if that doesn't work out, I can succeed elsewhere.
Yeah,
So,
you have the CPA degree, you have your accounting experience, you had
right.
a lot of plan Bs and Cs there that would work out for you. So, wow.
I
Well,
have to
Ilya,
tell myself that repeatedly is, hey, I got this far. Don't give up now.
yeah. Well, and you probably could see yourself too in terms of once you started getting grades in colleges, in law school, about where you kind of, where you ranked amongst your peers, and recognizing, oh, I can do this. I can do this. So that gives you the confidence, a lot of more confidence. Well,
Hmm.
Ilya, I could keep talking to you because I'm fascinated by this, always the mindset and how people can change their mindsets, because that's what really makes us unstoppable. We stop ourselves with our mindset, and we can, break through with our
Hmm.
mindset. So it's always fascinating. But we do have to kind of start wrapping up our interview today. So I have two wrap up questions. And the first one is, when you look back on your career, what do you think served you best? And it can be a characteristic, a strength, a discipline, a habit. What do you think kind of served you best over the years?
I would say a combination of me being able to adapt and working hard, right? Because there's always going to be the bad side of things, the letdowns. You thinking that, hey, it's not going to happen. Just like in law school, I thought I didn't make it into law school because the semester was getting ready to start. I never heard back, and I said, well, I didn't get high enough of a score, and all of a sudden I get a call the second day. I think after school would have, or I guess orientation would have officially started, I get a call that says somebody dropped out. And just like that, I go, oh, okay. I'm on assignment for the rest of the week as I was an auditor at the time. Can I start next week? And they said class starts on Monday. So yeah, if you're ready to pay your initial payment, go for it. So uh, sometimes and I found myself similar thing is sometimes you give up on something thinking that that's it, you missed your boat, but you can't give up because my life has shown that there are those opportunities out there. So again, I'm creating that artificial ceiling for myself. I did the same thing when I was preparing for the bar. I said, if I fail this, that's it. It's not going to happen. But thankfully, I did not have to retake that test again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and yeah, because some people take it more than once, right? So it isn't that,
Yeah.
if you fail, that your dream is over. You
Yeah,
have
and
to,
I know really, really smart people that were, ranked higher than me in law school that had to take it more than one time, and they never gave up. And so, it's about really having that never adapt, move on, keep trying, working hard. That's really the mentality that you need to have to succeed, I feel like.
yeah, to keep things going.
Hmm.
Okay, well, last wrap up question then. Any words of wisdom that impacted you when you were maybe struggling, or going through one of these times where you were kind of thinking you might have to go to plan B? Any words of
Mm.
wisdom, and it can be a quote, famous quote, or it could just be something someone said to you that really just kept you pushing forward.
Yeah, so I had a mentor in law school that she was actually the one that introduced me to some of those attorneys back in Adams County when I'd already counted that office out as not a possibility. She was just so uh, uninhibited with, with the general society's views on what should an attorney be or look like? How should they act? She was very, very direct, very blunt. She was a woman who gotten into pretty high ranks. She was a judge at the time, and she used to work for the federal government as a U.S. Attorney. So she did not let any of these. She would always tell me, "Hey, I didn't let any of my self-doubts get in the way." And that's really helped me a lot because I started to realize, hey, why am I putting these artificial ceilings up for myself? I got to get out of my own way. So it was these types of things and hearing that from her going, okay, well, I guess I can actually do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. So, and it is great when you see someone who is successful in that way and it resonates with you, right? That's kind of why I do this podcast is that when people can relate to your story, they're like,
Hmm.
oh, I do. I have been. I'm the one putting myself with barriers and stopping myself.
Hmm.
And then you start looking for people around you who are like, well, how do they do it? And then when you can have that conversation with them and learn that they're just like you, in so many ways, right? And they had doubts, but they just didn't let them stop
Yeah.
them. It's always very
I
powerful.
talked myself to the same thing when it was like, "Hey, it's time to open your own business. Are you going to be able to do it?" And then I started thinking, I go, "Yeah, it's just about defeating that the naysayer part of in the back of your head that says, "Hey, don't do this. This is risky." Uh, but you look to others who've done it and they've done it well, and you go, "Well, I'm no worse than that person. I can get it done."
Yeah. Well, and you also tap into the expertise of others. Like this, we met through a mutual friend, Carl Peters, who
Mhm.
helped you with your marketing, your branding, your website. You don't have to be an expert in all of those things. You find
Absolutely.
those experts and you tap into them, and then you can focus your time and energy on clients, time with your clients, getting new clients,
Mhm.
etc. So you're not building a website.
Right. I also did know my lane too, and I said, "What's my experience building a website? None.
None.
Let's go to the experts." And because they probably do, people when they're looking for estate planning services, they're not going to say, "Who's a really creative attorney who's done their own website?"
Yeah.
No.
And did he? Yeah. And did he do his own website? Does he do his own marketing? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, it has been a pleasure getting to know you better over these last few weeks. And I sure appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story because you never know who needed to hear this today. And will be moved, touched, and inspired by your story and come up with maybe some new ideas for their career. So thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much. It was my pleasure, and I enjoyed the podcast. And if this can be helpful to anybody, then that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I love helping people through this media. So, and listeners, if you enjoyed today's podcast and interview, please subscribe below so that you'll be alerted as other interviews are published. If you have any questions for me or for Ilya, I will post his social media, website, all of that on my website, lifestorycurator.com. So that's a resource. That's where all these interviews are. And then you can also find him if you'd like to talk to him more about estate planning. And on that note, I'll say stay safe, stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Have a great day.